Hey there, friends. How are you doing? What a boring day we had here to wrap up the end of the week in the market. But, I think there's some positives in what happened here Friday. And I mean, what more? Honestly, it was the best case scenario, too. I don't want to repeat myself too much because I just talked about some other things, but on the other channel. But to make a long story short, the market didn't sell off more, on Friday. We saw the market kind of show us some things. It showed us really what are the bottoms for some of these stocks that, particularly that we're in right now. Sofi, Wolf here. This kind of told us if this is the worst we're going to see in the market right now, if these are the bad days, well, this is kind of encouraging too because, Sofi especially, we're staying up in this above middle ground $20 zone, and it's saying there's a huge wall right now with a lot of these stocks. And SoFi, we'll just go right into talking about SoFi, but we're almost there. We're almost at the next quarterly here with SoFi. It is about to release quarterlies here. We are but days away, and I am so excited. I'm about to burst. I'm going to be honest with you. So with these next quarterlies that are coming out with SoFi, right now, if you type up SoFi, I mean, it's just article after article about rally in SoFi. What is this quarterly going to be? Can SoFi break into this $900 million range? Hey, maybe they can push in more to that. I don't know that there's a lot more. I don't know there's a lot more of people doubting that SoFi is going to still, be in this growth pattern. I think SoFi is very much in this genesis stage of it, of where it is in the evolutionary tracking of where it's going into the future, if that makes any sense. It's definitely going to continue to grow here because they have latched on to something far from what we've just seen this year. SoFi has been snatching up business with younger generation, middle generation, but really executing into that, and it is showing, and still every time we see one of these quarterlies come out with SoFi, they're also releasing, how many new customers they've gotten, essentially bank accounts, and it's growing crazy. It's growing so crazy. So, I would I've said this and I'll say it again, but I think SoFi is going to have somewhat of a leapfrog situation going into this year where we're going to see it run something like Robinhood's done this year. I mean, if you've seen what's happened to Robinhood stock, the one thing that I think a big argument with this too is that there is no reason that Robinhood should be as much money price-wise as it is compared to SoFi. It really should be the other way around. Now, obviously, there's going to be people that highly disagree with that, and that's totally fine. And that's not to show, shade, if you will, to Robinhood. I think Robinhood is definitely going to be a top contender with the banking system here as we push further into the new generation of, banking, what it looks like, how it's done, crypto, that's a whole nother conversation. But SoFi has been releasing these top-notch quarterlies and also with customer basis. It's just that for the reason of why it happened, Robinhood at the beginning of this year snatched up that $1 billion quarterly and shocked everyone. Now, since then, it hasn't been rocky, but, they haven't really pushed back into that. But I do think that once SoFi here touches this $1 billion quarterly, which will it'll probably be in this year span. If it's not Q3 here, more than likely it has a lot of wiggle room to get there by Q4. Especially if we see quarterly number 3 here come out anywhere, even just touching $940 million. I mean, they could probably get to $1 billion pretty easily at that point, especially seeing where their customer growth is at that point. So, it's coming here very soon. This is what's really exciting. But I mean, you as an investor with SoFi, you could not ask for a better moment right now because what we're seeing here is that SoFi is releasing, it keeps getting better. So track with me here. The market has sold off. And as boring as in maybe some people are looking at this and going like, oh, this is so terrible. It's really not. This is honestly fantastic. You could not ask for a better setup here. So if you're long trading swing trading, this is all going to work out, because what you're seeing right now, the market here has sold off. Okay, guess what? There's people that are just doubling down on their positions, buying more in their positions. Good, great. It's probably the smart thing to do. Definitely the smart thing to do. But what we're seeing here, going into the end of October, we've got SoFi releasing their third quarterly. It's probably going to be their biggest quarterly. Probably what we're going to see here. We're hoping, obviously. Then, potentially, sounds like, from what Jerome Powell said this week, we're getting this next rate cut here in October. Okay, here we go. Here's a whole nother slice of barbecue sandwich coming down the pipeline here. What happened on the last rate cut? The market went freaking nuts. It's going to happen again. Okay, now with that, right in the middle of all this, the market, Wall Street, everything, like I said, has sold off here. So you're probably about to see a shift of money go right back into the market here. All this is happening right in the middle of quarterly range. So we could see these AI stocks release just insane quarterlies, and the market's going to, it's going to be a feeding frenzy. That's probably, if I had to look into the future and got to pick two of one things that may happen, either the market's going to be a little blah in the next 2 weeks, or it's going to be freaking nuts. I would pick the freaking nuts position. That's probably where I would be. Now, obviously, the two things going on right now are, bond market's been shaky. Obviously, this is nothing new, so it's kind of mentioning the bond market at this point. It's like but the big thing too is that we're in this weird cycle of the government's closed. When is that going to open back up? Nobody knows. Are we even at September job reports? Probably not going to see those. October job reports? I don't know. Either way, we're looking at this and going, well, if the government opens back up, it could just kind of be a little bit of more fuel on this fire that's going to start back up here on the stock market. So there's so many components of goodness that should all collide here at the same time here with the stock market. And two, the negatives is that, obviously there's this whole Trump, China tariff thing. Now he's like, it's not a big deal. Now we've got Russia, Putin, us talking somewhere, probably it looks like in the middle of November. Okay. That's going to be way past all these quarterlies and all this news. It's kind of like this was almost set up to be a working situation for investors. That's really what it looks like. It's almost like a situation of where it's going like, this is it. This is the bottom. This is as low as you're going to get some of these stocks, and you can either pick them up now or you're going to get them at a much higher rate. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. I talked about this week, but swing trading SoFi, I already sold out of that one position. SoFi, I sold it this week. I think like Tuesday or something. Tuesday, whenever SoFi hit that like almost high $28 range, I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and do it because I think there's drama coming. Sure enough, there was drama coming, and I bought back in this week. So worked out. But with that, that I'm going to swing SoFi again going into the next 2 weeks. But long term, I'm still holding a long term position because I think over the next 5-10 years, SoFi is going to probably be, put in the S&P 500. I think we're talking about stock split, somewhere in the distant future. And two, just, continuing to find solid business and the share price rising up for that. I believe that SoFi is going to be a dominant predator in the banking system, and they're already showing very strong signs of that. So, I mean, SoFi, I hope people see what I think a lot of us that are drinking the juice with SoFi see. This isn't like, it might work out kind of stock. This is the real deal. This is working out before us. And this will undoubtedly be the best year SoFi has ever had. And, think about next year with SoFi. Think about next year. Think about if SoFi starts off 2026, quarterly number 1. We've already broken into $1 billion by that time. If SoFi continues to push into this billion plus, Q1 billion plus, Q2 billion plus, Q3 billion plus, Q4 billion plus, that is going to make people sick that did not get involved at a sooner time, probably. That's going to be really interesting. And just to talk about Wolf, I talked about Wolf a lot yesterday, so I didn't want people to be like, God, don't say all that over again. But, I obviously there's a lot of, this is probably one of the most hottest stocks on the stock market that you may not know about. Okay. It's a very popular stock in its corner. It's something that I've been watching for a long time now. I talked about this stock right when it was like $3, $5, and I didn't talk about it much more just because of what it was attached to, and it wasn't getting a lot of attention at that point. So I was like, sadly, there's plenty of stocks that I love, and I've talked about them from time to time, but they just don't get attention. So I'm like, okay, what's the point? And it seems like when I talk about them, people get upset, but I think people are finally starting to look at Wolf here. And obviously that's the ticker on it. But this stock right now, I think definitely with FOMO, with price action, if they execute this next quarterly that they've got coming up here very soon, this will definitely be a $16 to $18 stock. No doubt about it. But the thing too is, I still think if this company comes out with a quarterly that is just a hair missing this quarterly, I think this will still be a stock that will do well into the future. I look at this the same way I look at Applied Digital right now, where Applied Digital up until just a week ago was coming out with quarterlies that were not hitting, but they were still making more money than they had made in recent time, years. And they had found new revenue. They had found their new bread and butter. They were still signing deals, partnering, pushing, they're expanding where they were building, literally physically. And I look at TeraWulf here, much like that, where, this is a very much expanding, growing company, and it definitely has a shot to make it into the future here, especially with where technology is going. I look at the next phase of the market. I've talked about this. I don't want to say it too much more, but I've talked about the phases. Every 5-10 years, there are. I think it's really every like 4 to 5 years in the market, especially with presidents. But there's phases in the market. We've gone through the EV phase. We've gone through a little bit of the cannabis phase. We've gone through the green initiative phase, and now we're definitely in the AI phase. And I look at that and I go like, I don't know that the AI phase, I think it's kind of just here to stay at the moment, but I think there's different phases of the phase. I think there's phases in this AI bubble, if you will. And that's where I start to look at robotics. I start to look at, companies that deal with crypto. I start to look at companies that are, water cooling systems for data centers in general. There's a lot of these things that are starting to pop up and getting a lot of attention, and some of them, yes, are starting to make some serious money, and investors are like, what is this thing over here, because that's what investors are essentially. When you become obsessed with this, you're just looking at shiny things. You're like, what's the next shiny thing that's very cheap? And that's why Wolf here is getting a lot of attention. And I think that the stock could really, I think a lot of volatility will come with it. I really do. But in that, it will have tremendous opportunity for people to find positions in it, to do well in it too, to really run with it. So yeah, friends, I want to wish you all the best of luck. I'll be back talking tomorrow, and I'm so excited. I know these were the last 2 days of the market were boring and kind of depressing, but they also showed us where a lot of our stocks are. The market's been running hot here. And when things run hot, you start like, okay, people start buying it at unbelievable prices. And this is why I talk about this all the time, where I'm like, take profit. If you're not in this for the long run, or even if you are trying to build up a higher position, there's nothing wrong with taking profit. Why are you in the stock market to begin with? Get some profit, get some change in your pocket. There's opportunities all the time. Right now, we could be going into another push in this market from what I'm thinking we're going to see here. So yeah, friends, I will talk to you soon. Take care of yourself. Bye, everyone.